Sight, Sound, Motion is my second recommended book for aspiring filmmakers. Written by Herbert Zettel, a broadcast and electronic communication arts professor from San Francisco State University, this book provides students with a strong grounding in what Zettel terms applied media aesthetics. Applied media aesthetics is just another way of saying visual structure. I've had this book on my shelf since the 1990s, and it's a book about understanding visual structure. If the visual story is Visual Structure 101, then Sight, Sound, Motion is Visual Structure 102. And between these two books, aspiring filmmakers and film students will get a solid foundational understanding of visual structure. The book is comprehensive and well thought out. There are plenty of examples. In the prologue, Zettel writes, "This book gives you the tools to clarify, intensify, and interpret events for television, the internet, and cinema presentation. In effect, it teaches you how to apply the major media aesthetic elements to manipulate how people see screen images. Essentially, it's how to create effective shots that work." What's the difference between the visual story and sight, sound, motion? The visual story provides you with an abstract understanding of visual structure and how to use the visual components of space, line, shape, tone, color, movement, and rhythm effectively to tell your story visually. Sight, sound, motion provides you with a practical, real-world understanding of visual structure and how to use the 5 fundamental aesthetic fields of light and color, 2-dimensional space, 3-dimensional space, time, motion, and sound to tell your story visually. Why should aspiring filmmakers read this book? Sight, Sound, Motion provides aspiring filmmakers and film students with a detailed understanding of what has come to be known as compositional rules of visual structure. These rules are based on the principles of human perception and on what has worked historically. Not only does Zettel outline what the rules are, he provides an understanding of why they work. Only after knowing and understanding these rules can a filmmaker effectively break these rules. In the past, I found myself referring to sight, sound, motion when a particular shot or edit wasn't working. Inevitably, it turned out that I had unknowingly violated one of the perceptual principles outlined in Zettel's book. What did I learn from this book? Zettel introduced me to Gestalt theory in filmmaking, how the sum total is greater than its parts. This is especially important in montage editing, but it applies to other areas of filmmaking as well. Zettel introduced me to the concept of premature closure. When certain shot compositions or edits were not working, it was most likely because I was not facilitating closure. I learned the practical rules for shot composition. I learned how to properly compose a shot, what works and what doesn't work, and most importantly, why. Zettel provides plenty of real-world practical examples that make sense as soon as you see them. Zettel introduced me to thinking about motion in terms of primary, secondary, and tertiary motion. Primary motion is any movement in front of the camera, such as actors and vehicles or other objects. Secondary motion is the movement of the camera itself. And tertiary motion is the movement from shot to shot, essentially editing motion. When analyzing a shot, I could break down the shot in terms of its primary, secondary, and tertiary motion. When this is combined with Bruce Bloch's concept of visual intensity, this understanding of cinematic motion gives you much greater control when matching the intensity of the motion with the intensity of the action in the story. Zettel introduced me to graphic, index, and motion vectors. Understanding these different types of vectors helped when it came to editing the motion shots. I learned the basics of lensology, how to compress and expand screen space through your lens choice, and how your lens choice affects your shot composition and the movement within the shot. As a side note, Gustavo Mercado goes into lensology in great detail in his book, The Filmmaker's Eye, The Language of the Lens. As mentioned, the visual story and sight, sound, motion provides filmmakers with a solid foundational understanding of visual structure. That said, neither book goes into detail about script analysis. Zettel mentioned in an interview that Sight, Sound, Motion is a book about form, not about content. The content is something that the filmmaker brings to the table. Zettel provides filmmakers with the practical tools for structuring content. Your story's subtext is part of that content. And if you don't know what your story's subtext is, you cannot effectively encode it into your visual structure. As such, your film will lack any intentional meaning. My book, Subtextual Analysis for Film Directors, is available for free at the link in the description below. I take you through the process of subtextual analysis. Once you know what your story's subtext is, you can then effectively use all of the tools of visual structure to encode your film with meaning. If you want to learn more about visual structure and cinematic filmmaking, like and subscribe to this channel. I'll be sharing much more about what I've learned about filmmaking from the inside out.